want your name, but my eyes on the wall. You were running like a ghost from me. You were running from it all. You got me waiting, I'm on fire. You got me waiting, my desire. I follow your heartbeat.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, agents and ghost operators. Yes, ghost operators, because I am Mountie Carl, and this is a Let's Talk and Let's Review on the Ghost Recon Beta. And the Ghost Recon Beta is underway right now, and we are in the midst of it, and while I am enjoying it, I am seeing a lot of comparisons with Far Cry 3, Far Cry 4, and just the Far Cry series in general. And so this comparison is probably pretty accurate, since the company that is developing this also had a hand in developing Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 4, and at the beginning of the game you actually see a clip where they're like, hey, this has been in development for 4 years, so we're glad you're getting to play it now. And if you think about it and you look at the timeline, Far Cry 3 was 2012, Far Cry 4 was 2014, and now this is 2016. So you take that, that's been 4 years, so they basically just took Far Cry 3, Far Cry 4, and modded it into Ghost Recon Wildlands. And I have to say that before I say anything and we get into all of the good stuff and the bad stuff that I really liked about this game would actually do a lot better if they just removed the Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon and replaced it with the Far Cry Wildlands, and it would just go with the overall theme of things. And I think that this is better because if you look at the game, everything in it is basically from Far Cry. You know, you got your roaming rebels who are on your side, you got the enemies who are on the opposing faction side, you have a couple different opposing factions, they'll fight with each other. You have, you know, just the side missions like going to the antennas and doing that, which seems very much like Far Cry. You have a lot of the, you know, outside of the main mission stuff, you have a lot of the basic, you know, side missions that you would do in a Far Cry game. You have some semblance of the weapon system that comes from Far Cry, the progression system that feels very much like it belongs in a Far Cry game, not in a tactical shooter, because if you were playing a tactical shooter, you would probably have a lot of this stuff already. And we're also going to probably use GTA 5 as a comparison, because unlike this game has been in development for 4 years, and Far Cry, but GTA 5 was in development for 5 years. So the level of something like that should possibly be within the same range. So you should be getting a same quality game, and we'll see what we talk about. So let's go ahead and jump right in. The character creation is by far one of my favorite things. You can actually make a character that looks like yourself. You can make it look like somebody else. You can make it look like another character. You can make it look like the character from your favorite video game and play as that. And I definitely went ahead and by accident made a Snake Plissken character, and that's what everybody said it looked like, so that's what I went with, and that's what I got. And but none of the clothing options actually really did it for me, so I went with this just kind of plain dumbed down character. But I really didn't like a lot of the clothing options. It seemed very limited when you got down to clothing and stuff like that. The Division actually feels like it has more clothing options, even though all the options are basically the same with just different skins on them. So that's really but the facial thing, the facial hair, the hairstyles, the eye patches, the hats, the clothing, I mean, it makes for a really good character creation tool, and that's one of the things that I really liked about it. The second thing was that the world is huge and expansive. It feels vast, it feels very much alive at times, and I really enjoyed how big it felt, even with just the small area that you're playing in the beta. I do have to say though, I was looking at maps of different games, and while this is actually bigger than GTA 5, it's bigger, it's about 2.5 times the size of GTA 5 and Los Santos. It's actually bigger than The Division, it's bigger than a lot of the other games out there. It is not bigger than Just Cause 3, which is a game very similar to this, and I will also probably use that as reference as well, because that actually feels like a better game. The weapons, I felt like the weapons were okay. There was a lot of me firing the weapons. It feels very much like what you would find in a Far Cry game. The first person aiming down the sights. You can go ahead and change that in the options, but it feels very much, when you aim down the sights, it felt very much like Far Cry to me. The character progression I didn't really care for, but it was actually very intuitive. It felt nice. It was fine. A lot of people aren't going to find that they enjoy the character progression, because not only do you need skill points, but you also need resources, and I have no idea why you need resources, but that's what you do. It doesn't make any sense why you need resources. And the other thing that I really liked in this game is your ability to holster your weapon. You can actually holster your weapon by holding down the Y button. I don't know if you noticed that, but a lot of games don't really have that. You know, The Division doesn't have any holstering of your weapon. A lot of first-person shooters, third-person shooters, they do not have a holster weapon button, and people react when you have your gun out. Although I didn't really see a purpose for holstering my weapon in this beta, because people didn't really react when you had your gun out, only if you pointed it at them, much like a lot of the other games that are in The Division. Now, with that said, this game has been in production for 4 long years, and if they've worked on it the entire time, that's great, but it does not feel like they have worked on it this entire time. And once I'm done with this review, I'm going to go ahead and tell you whether or not Mounty Carl is actually going to purchase this game, and we'll just go from there and we'll call it that. And it's very disappointing to me that I have to actually make a review where I tell you whether or not I'm going to buy this game. It should be if I make a review, it should be pretty much a given that this is a great game and this should go without saying. And so let's go ahead and take away all of the bad things that I think in here. Now, one of the things that I hated was when you're in a group of 4 players, tagging items. Everybody has to pick up different items at the same time. You have to, if one, you know, the tagging items, if you tag an item, why should your group have to tag the item? Why should everybody in your group tag the item? It makes absolutely no sense. Everybody should get the reward for that and move on. There should be no having to tag an item 4 times for everybody to get the XP for it. This is just unforgivable. This is just lazy programming. The AI is absolutely terrible. If they don't know where you are at one point, they know where you are every single time after that. They can see through bushes, they can see through walls. If you shoot in a direction, they automatically know exactly where you're shooting from. The AI seems like it was just ripped right out of Far Cry. It's very much, except in Far Cry, they actually, if they lose sight of you or you run around, they actually don't know where you are, and they're like, "Where are you? Where are you? Show yourself." Like, that's really what this should be like. I mean, that's, one of the other things that I really liked about this game, let me step backwards, it was the drone use. I do like the drone, although enemies don't really see the drone. You could hear a drone coming from a mile away. So why don't you see a drone? And in the end game, I assume that they are going to go ahead and see the drone because your drone has health and all that stuff. But the tagging system, if you look at the tagging system, just look at it, look at the Far Cry tagging system, it's exactly the same. They even use the same colors and everything like that. So let's just go ahead and keep moving on. Physics. The physics are absolutely dreadful in this game. They are terrible. They make me want to pull my hair out. And it's just, whether it's the vehicle physics, the flying physics, the running physics, the jumping off of something. You can't actually jump in this game because I have a feeling they removed the jump and the combat roll or evasive maneuver, whatever you have, because it just created too many bugs in this game and probably created too many issues for developers to overcome, and they just removed it altogether because this game feels like you should be able to jump, but they just went ahead and removed it because who doesn't know how to jump? Why wouldn't you know how to jump? It doesn't seem like you can teabag to the, so well. Like, these guys must be, these guys didn't skip leg day. They obviously had that because they can teabag like no other. I do enjoy the fact that you can go prone in this game, but that really doesn't make a difference because if you snipe somebody while you're prone, they can still see you, they start shooting at you and go from there. The physics are unforgivable. You can actually go jump off of mountains with a car and your car is fine. You can actually jump off a mountain 10 feet and die. When you're running and, basically when I'm with my friends and we were going on a mission, I would just drive the car off the mountain because that was the fastest way to get to the bottom. And there was no consequences for it. There was 0 consequences. It didn't matter if your car was junk or whatever. The car would run exactly how it is. I pop tires on the cars. They run exactly the same with a flat tire. It's ridiculous. There should be some sort of vehicle physics, and the vehicles were part of one of the things that I absolutely loathed about this game. In a game where you're going to spend a lot of time in vehicles, the driving should be solid. Like I said, this game took 4 years to create. It took GTA 5 years, and the driving in GTA 5 and GTA 4 were absolutely superb compared to the garbage that they're handing out here in Ghost Recon Wildlands. A game where the main focus is driving should be that you have, and the physics come from Far Cry. It feels very much like when you're driving a car in Far Cry, because the main point of Far Cry was not to drive a car. In this, it feels like vehicles are at the forefront and that you need to drive the vehicles to actually get anywhere. You're going to spend a lot of time driving, and that is why the driving needs to be fixed. And flying is no better. The way it flies, take a look at GTA 5's flying mechanics. Make it like that. There's no reason not to copy other games, especially games that did stuff well. When I was in development, we actually looked at other games, saw what they did well, how players reacted to them, and actually used that stuff, because that is what you do. You want to make sure that people know and the feel of the game feels very similar to what they're already used to. The flying in this, helicopters, planes, it's terrible. And I don't know if where you took it from, but it needs to be revamped. It needs to be recoded. You can't shoot with a helicopter. There's helicopters that have guns on them. You cannot shoot with them. You can shoot in a straight line, but there's no way that you can actually target people on the ground or anything like that with them unless you do some, careful maneuvering. So that covers the driving and the flying and the shooting and all of that stuff. Collision detection, absolutely terrible. In Far Cry, at least I could run over people, but then the connectivity is so poor that people either dive out of the way just in time, you can actually hit people, but most of the time you can't hit people. You can run into them and scoot them around with your car, but you do not kill them. But if you run into a car and it's barely moving, you'll die. You'll die instantly as soon as you touch the car, if the car is even moving. There's no getting knocked down like in GTA. There's no getting back up. You die, basically. You get knocked down, you're injured, there's no broken legs or anything like that, you just fall to the ground and do that. There's no ragdoll physics. If you get hit by a car, which I did several times, that you just fall exactly where you are. There's no getting flung into the air, there's no getting thrown like you're on a motorcycle going down a cliff. There's nothing of that sort, and that needs to be all sorted out. This stuff is something that needs to be fixed before the game launches, and hopefully this stuff is, because this stuff is egregious to the game design process. These are things that every professional game designer knows needs to actually be fixed. Coders shouldn't even be coding this stuff, let alone actually going, oh yeah, well, when they die, we'll just have them drop to the ground. 9 times out of 10, the reason why they do it is because there was another bug and this was the easiest fix for it. So hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully they can fix it. They need some sort of ragdoll physics to make it. When you get shot, you just kind of slump over. And there are games that do this so much better. Games that were in development for less time. Games that were in development for just shorter time periods after this. GTA 5 does this well. There's a lot of games that do this really, really well, and this game is an example of what not to do when your character gets killed over time. Let's talk about vehicle damage really quick. So when you're going down a cliff, and I know I'm just kind of jumping from here to there and I'm talking about the bad things, but there were a lot of good things. We had a lot of fun playing this, but that's about it. This is a game that you will buy to just kind of joke around with your friends and have fun with the world, and you won't really be penalized for a lot of stuff you do, even though you are penalized. Like, how does the commander know that you just killed a civilian? And because it got, shh, hey, so you killed a civilian, what's wrong with you, you dig? And stuff like that. But there's no reason for that. You should be able to kill people willy-nilly. There shouldn't be any penalty for killing people. And there's a lot of bugs in this game. There's a ton of them, and I'm hoping that this beta technical build was really, really old. It's a really old build, because if this is what day one, and this is an Ubisoft game, and Ubisoft absolutely does not like me. They don't like my YouTube channel. They've probably blacklisted me from a lot of different things because of my reporting on The Division and my criticism of it and my criticism of just Ubisoft games in general. One of the first games I criticized was Assassin's Creed Unity. That game was a piece of garbage when it came out. I criticized Rainbow Six Siege because that game was garbage when it came out. Tried to do a ranked game on Rainbow Six Siege when it first came out. You couldn't even find anybody that wanted to do it. There was nothing about it. So I have been a very avid supporter of purchasing Ubisoft games. I didn't even like Watch Dogs, the original one, because it felt very anti-intuitive to what they were trying to accomplish, and it felt very much like some other game. And so there's just a lot of stuff. So vehicle damage, when you back into a wall at 2 miles per hour and it looks like the damage is being done at a 50 mile per hour rate, That's wrong. It shouldn't do that. The damage in GTA 5 to the cars is much more realistic to what would happen. There shouldn't be, it looks like the car has 3 states. There's a front where it's in the fine state, where it's a fixed state. There's the back where it's in a crash state. And that's it. There's just 2 states. The windows get shattered, the back crumples in, and that's it. There's 2 states to it. The front of the car is the same way. There's the fine state where it's repaired. There's the bad state where the hood is broken and the front is smashed in. It looks like you had a major collision and people should be dead inside the car with how fast you were going. But you were only going 2 miles per hour when you crashed. So that is just absolutely unforgivable in this type of game when you have this long. 4 years. 4 years is a huge time cycle for creating a game like this and having it be so terribly, horribly well, just absolutely inexcusable for a lot of what's going on. And let's just compare this with Far Cry really quick, because this is taken, it looks like the Far Cry engine, it looks like Far Cry had a lot of influence over this, and if they didn't use the Far Cry world, well, shame on them, because that makes it that much worse to not reuse the assets and have it this far behind in development. They really, this game, in my opinion, needs another year of development effort, but because of money, the money's probably all out, and they just need to go and get this released. And they'll go ahead and do what they did with The Division, they did with Rainbow Siege, they did with Assassin's Creed Unity. They're going to release a piece of shit and polish it up over the year. That's just what Ubisoft seems to be doing. And if you have stock in Ubisoft, I would probably dump it as fast as you can, because this is not the way game development should work. This is not an open and free world where you can release a game and then a year later you actually finish it. This is something that you need to take the time and do it right, because people aren't going to buy this game based on that. This is going to be $19.99 a year from now if they don't do something, or this game is an accurate representation of what it's going to look like on day one. And so going back to what I'm talking about, the world does not feel very much alive. Far Cry 3, Far Cry 4, when you're out and about, at any moment you could be attacked by animals, and I'm sure that there's some reason they didn't put animals in this game, but I'm sure that, there's more wildlife out in the Bolivian jungles or plains or wetlands or wherever it is. There's more wildlife out there than what is in the game, and there's no wildlife whatsoever except for farm animals and birds in the sky. That's pretty much it. That's all there is. There were more animals, it felt like, running around in The Division, and that consisted of rats and dogs and crows. That's it. That doesn't say much for New York, if there's just rats, dogs, and crows crawling around. That's pretty much it. And then finally, the network connectivity feels absolutely dreadful. There were times where on my screen, I wouldn't show up to a player if I was flying a vehicle. It looked like it was on autopilot. There were times, and I'll try and dig those up for you, that my teammates, like I have one, it's the funniest thing. The guy was driving a tractor. On his screen, it probably looked fine. On my screen, it looks like the tractor is driving away. It looks like one of the farmer accidentally got off the tractor with the gas pedal held down, and he's chasing the tractor around in circles. Benny Hill music should be playing in the background of this while he's trying to chase it around. It's absolutely hysterical, some of the stuff that's happening. And that's a lot of stuff that can be fixed over network connectivity, but Ubisoft is notoriously known for bad network connectivity and not having great servers. It happened in The Division, it happened in Far Cry multiplayer, it happened a lot of times, and there's no excuse for it in this day and age. It's 2017. There are game companies that are above and beyond going to make these fun games that are absolutely a blast, and it just seems like Ubisoft is doing just the minimum not to get fired. And so it's not very fun for the rest of us to keep seeing these games that have so much potential and watching them fall flat when we buy these games, and then a year later you show up to fix them. I got rid of my Rainbow Six Siege maybe 2 or 3 weeks after buying it. It was absolutely a mess, and I just didn't want it, and I sold it for 35 bucks, and by the time it was fixed, I went back to the store and bought it for $17. It was, I mean, it's just that easy. There's no reason, you know, I basically made money selling that game and buying it back. I made $5. That was the easiest, you know, $5 I ever made. Good for me. Like, it's just that kind of stuff, you know, that makes it so that people are weary about pre-ordering, people are weary about Ubisoft games, and it's going to end up tanking the company if they keep doing this kind of stuff. The Division is a great game. I love The Division, but you know, it needs a lot of work, and we're getting to the point where we've actually almost got a game that's actually what we thought might be release date. That's really, you know, in a year more. Look at all of that they've done in The Division over the last year, and you can't tell me that if that released today that wouldn't actually be a decent game to play. I mean, that's really what it is. They should have waited and used that year of development to actually work out the game. But what happened is that they needed the player base to actually know, because there's a massive player base that needs to go and work on these games. They just don't have the testing ability. They don't have the core of testers to be able to test everything in the game. And so over this last year, we have been testing this game, and it's actually developing into a game that we want to play. And that's my fear for Ghost Recon Wildlands, is that's going to happen. The sad thing is this is not a community game. It's a 4-player co-op game. There's no PvP. There's no Dark Zone. There's no competitive PvP in it. It's a Far Cry game. And if you look at Far Cry games, people stop playing them after they finish the main mission, or they just get, you know, generally bored. Sure, I had a lot of fun with Far Cry 3 and setting people on fire, setting little traps on the side of the road for enemies that went by, but that gets old really fast. And in this game, it's going to be the same. So that's pretty much all I want to talk about. I do like this game. It's not bad. It's going to be one of those games that I probably pick up and just goof around with my friends in, because that's really what it is. You know, I'll play with subscribers, help you guys out, but it's really, you know, I don't foresee it being a huge hit. It's not a community game that's going to be on YouTube for years to come. That you'll see walkthroughs and you'll see hilarious moments, because there are going to be a lot of hilarious moments in it. But my suggestion would be change the name from Tom Clancy Ghost Recon to Far Cry Wildlands, because that is what this game is. It's going to change the expectation about what the game feels like, and it's going to give gamers a more realistic expectation as to what the game should be. So anyways, that's going to be my time. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and drop a like on it. I told you that I would tell you whether I'm going to buy it. I probably am. I'm going to wait a little bit just to see if things shape up and get a little bit better as we get to the date, because what I'll end up doing is just buying it on Xbox, and you know, you can pre-order it up to the very last minute on Xbox, but I probably won't be pre-ordering it. I'm just going to preload it, and we'll see what we go from there. But I won't get a hard copy, or I actually might get a hard copy now that I'm thinking about it, and just because of the fact that I can turn that in if I don't like it and get 35 bucks from, you know, the leading game store retailer or whatever it is that's out there. So anyways, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe for more content. We might have some Ghost Recon funny moments and stuff like that while we're doing this, and you know, we'll just post those up with different reviews of, you know, things. But there's nothing, you know, the depth of what this is a game isn't as deep as The Division or anything like that. It's very much skin deep. There's no, you know, there's no guide as to how to progress or how to build your character or anything like that. It's a simple game. It's pretty straightforward, and at the end of the day, if you can't do it, it's, you know, it's not the game for you. So thank you so much for all of us here at the Let's Talk for Gun Brothers Gaming. I'm Manny Carl, and we'll see you in the Wildlands. Agent out.